I'll make that the hour. So, hello everybody, and welcome as always. My name is SkitterSkreetch. You can call me Skitter. And once again, we are back in this library reading books. Appreciate, by the way, to anyone who stayed with me all last night while we read through the entirety of The Great Gatsby. That was crazy, and probably I shouldn't have done it, but it was good practice, and I had a good time. So, what are we doing today? Well, today we have something a little bit more chill. Just got a few Mark Twain's. Specifically, we've got A Visit to Niagara, or Niagara, I'm not entirely sure. We've got Play and Courier, we've got Extracts from Adam's Diary and Eve's Diary, which I saw them today and I thought I'd grab them because they seem like a match set. So, yeah, we'll see how they got on. Trying to think if there's anything to do. No new followers as far as I'm aware, so no one to shout out. We're still at 6 stories for the Londonathon, which is in 2 days. So yeah, anyone who wants to follow, get me to read more London in one sitting, feel free to do that. Yeah, and as always, of course, while we're going through the day, feel free at any point if you didn't catch something and need me to go over it again or have thoughts or questions to just speak up and ask me. I'm always happy to chat. Yeah, without further ado, that being all, I suppose, let's get on with it. So, if I can find A Visit to, I think it's Niagara. I'm going to go with Niagara. A Visit to Niagara. Appearing in Twain's Buffalo Express column on August 21st, 1869, this travelogue was originally entitled A Day at Niagara. John Camden pirated the work for his collection, Practical Jokes, in 1872. The following year, the story was published in a Philadelphia collection called 100 Choice Selections, then retitled A Visit to Niagara for the American Publishing Company's Mark Twain Sketches New and Old in 1875. Niagara Falls is a most enjoyable place to resort. The hotels are excellent and the prices not at all exorbitant. The opportunities for fishing are not even equal elsewhere, because in other localities certain places in the streams are much better than others. But at Niagara, one place is just as good as another, for the reason that the fish do not bite anyway. So there's no use in you walking 5 miles to fish when you can depend on being just as unsuccessful near your own. The advantages of this state of things have never hitherto been properly placed before the public. The weather is cool in summer, and the walks and drives are all pleasant, and none of them fatiguing. When you start to do the falls, you first drive down about a mile and pay a small sum for the privilege of looking down from a precipice cut to the narrowest part of the Niagara River. A railway cut through an hill would be as comely if it had the angry river tumbling and foaming through its bottom. You can descend the staircase here 150 feet down and stand at the edge of the water. After you've done it, you'll wonder why you did it, but you will then be too late. The guard will explain to you in his blood-curdling way how he saw the little steamer made of the mist descend the fearful rapids. Our first one paddle box was out of sight behind the raging billows, then another. And at what point it was the smokestack toppled overboard, and when her planking began to break apart and part asunder. Now she did finally live through the trip, after accomplishing the incredible feat of travelling 17 miles in 6 minutes. Or 6 miles in 17 minutes, I've really forgotten which. Very extraordinary anyhow. It is worth the price of admission to hear the guard tell the story 9 times in succession to different parties, and never miss a word or alter a sentence or a gesture. And you drive over the suspension bridge and divide your misery between the chances of smashing down 200 feet into the river below and the chances of having the railway train overhead smashing down onto you. Either possibility is discomforting taken by itself, and mixed together they amount in aggregate to a positive unhappiness. On the Canada side, you drive along the chasm between long ranks of photographers standing guard behind their cameras, ready to make an ostentatious frontispiece of you and your decaying ambulance, and your solemn crate with an eye in it, which you are expected to regard in the light of an horse, and a diminished and unimportant background of sublime Niagara. And great many people have the incredible effrontery or the naive depravity to aid and abet this sort of crime. Any day in the hand of these photographers you may see stately pictures of Papa and Mama, Johnny and Bub and Sis, or a couple of country cousins, all smiling vacantly and all disposed in studied and uncomfortable attitudes in the carriage, and all looming up in their awe-inspiring imbecility before the snubbed and diminished presentment of that majestic presence, whose menacing spirits are the rainbows, whose voice is the thunder, whose awful form is veiled in clouds, whose monarch here, dead and forgotten ages before this actful, the small reptiles were deemed temporarily necessary to fill a crack in the world's unnoted myriads, and will still be monarchy ages and decades of age after they all shall have gathered themselves to their blood, relations, the other worms, and been mingled with the unremembering dust. Whoa. Making a bit of acid tonight, God. Yeah, give me a minute and let me get out of that. There is no actual harm in making Niagara a background whereupon to display one's marvellous insignificance in good strong light, but it requires a sort of superhuman self-complacency to enable one to do it. When you examine the stupendous horseshoe fall till you are satisfied you cannot improve on it, you return to America by the new suspension bridge and follow up the bank to where they exhibit the Cave of the Winds. Here I followed instructions and divested myself of all my clothing and put on a waterproof jacket and overalls. This costume is picturesque but not beautiful. A guard, similarly dressed, led the way down a flight of winding stairs which wound and still kept on winding long after the thing had ceased to be a novelty, and then terminated long before it had begun to be a pleasure. We were then well down under the precipice, but still considerably above the level of the river. We now began to creep along flimsy bridges of a single plank, our persons shielded from destruction by a crazy wooden railing, which I clung with both hands, not because I were afraid, but because I wanted to. Presently the descent became steeper, and the bridge flimsier, and sprays from the American fall began to rain down on us in fast increasing sheets, and soon became blinding, and after that our progress were mostly in the nature of groping. Now a furious wind began to rush out from behind the waterfall, which seemed to determine the sweetness from the bridge, and scatter us on the rocks and among the torrents below. I remarked that I wanted to go home, but it was too late. We were almost under the monstrous wall of water thundering down from above, and speech were in vain in the midst of such a pitiless crash of sound. In another moment the guard disappeared behind the deluge, and bewildered by the thunder, driven helplessly by the wind, and smitten by the arrowy tempest of rain, I followed. All were darkness. Such a mad storm and roaring and bellowing and warring wind and water never crazed my ears before. I bent my head and seemed to receive the Atlantic on my back. The world seemed to be going to destruction. I could not see anything. The flood poured down so savagely. I raised my head with open mouth, and the most of the American cataract went down my throat. If I had sprung a leak now, I had been lost. In this moment I discovered that the bridge had ceased, and we must trust for a foothold to the slippery and precipitous rocks. I never was so scared before and survived it. But we got through at last and emerged into open day where we could stand in front of the laced and frothy and seething world of the descending water and look at it. Where I saw how much of it there was and how fearfully in earnest it was, I was sorry I had gone beyond it. The noble red man has always been a friend and darling of mine. I love to read about him in tales and legends and romances. I love to read of his inspired sagacity and his love of the wild free life of mountain and forest, and his general nobility of character, and his stately metaphorical manner of speech, and his chivalrous love for the dusky maiden, and the picturesque pomp of his dress and accoutrement. Especially the picturesque pomp of his dress and accoutrement. When I found the shops at Niagara Falls full of dainty Indian beadwork and stunning moccasins and equally stunning toy figures representing human beings who carried their weapons in holes bored through their arms and bodies, and had feet shaped like a pie, I was filled with emotion. I knew that now, at last, I was going to come face to face with the noble red man. A lady clerk in the shop told me, indeed, that all our grand array of curiosities were made by the Indians, and there were plenty about in the falls, and they were friendly, and it would not be dangerous to speak to them. And sure enough, as I approached the bridge leading over the lunar island, I came upon a noble son of the forest sitting under a tree, diligently at work on a beard reticule. He wore a slouch hat and brogans, and had a short black pipe in his mouth. Thus does the painful contact with our effeminate civilization dilute the picturesque pomp which is so natural to the Indian when far removed from us in his native haunts. I addressed the relic as follows. Is the Wahoo Wang Wan of the Wacka Wacky happy? Does the great speckled thunder sigh for the warpath through his heart contented with dreaming of the dusky maiden, the pride of the forest? Does the mighty Saturnian drink the blood of his enemies, or is he satisfied to make bead reticules for the papoose of the paleface? Speak, sublime relic of bygone grandeur, venerable ruin, speak. The relic said, As it myself, Dallas Hooligan, you be talking over a dirty engine, you drawling land-jarred spider-legged devil, with a piper that played before him Moses I'll eat you. I went away from that. By and by, in the neighbourhood of the Terrapin Tower, I come upon a gentle daughter of the Aborigines, in fringed and beaded bucket-skin moccasins and leggings, seated on a bench with her pretty wares about her. She had just carved out a wooden chief that had a strong family resemblance to a clothespin, when out boring an hole through his abdomen and put a bow through. I hesitated a moment and then addressed her. Is the art of the forest maiden heavy? Is the laughing tadpole lonely? Does she mourn over the extinguished council fires of her race and the vanished glory of her ancestors? Or does a sad spirit wander afar towards the hunting grounds whither her brave gobbler of the lightning is gone? Why is my daughter silent as she ought against a pale-faced stranger? The maiden said, Feck, said it's Biddy Malone you dare to be calling names. Laugh this, I'll show you a lean carcass of the cataract, you slivering blackguard. I jumped from there also. Confound these Indians, I said. They told me they were tame, but if appearance go for anything, I should say they're all on the warpath. I made one more attempt to fraternise with them, and only one. I come upon a camp of them gathered in the shade of a great tree, making wampum and moccasins, and addressed them in the language of friendship. Oh Lord, this is a bit much, I must say. I passed through a different time, and I'm sure that, you know what, no, this is just bad. I don't like it. I don't like that I'm reading it, but it is important to remember that the past were a bad place. It's important to remember that the past is a bad place, and so I'm going to read this terrible piece of dribble here. The explicit reminder that this is to demonstrate that the past were a much worse time when this sort of thing were acceptable. Ugh. Noble red man, braves, grand sacums, war chief scores, and armuckamucks, the pale face from the land of the setting sun greets you. You beneficent polecat, you devourer of mountains, you roaring thundergust, you bully boy with a glass eye, the pale face from beyond the grey waters greet you all. War and pestilence have thinned your ranks and destroyed your once proud nation. Poker and 7-Up and a vain modern expense for soap, unknown to your glorious ancestors have depleted your purses. Appropriating in your simplicity the prosperity of others has gotten you into trouble. Misrepresenting facts in your simple innocence has damaged your reputation with the soulless usurper. Trading for 40 rod whiskey to enable you to get drunk and happy and tomahawk your families has played the everlasting mischief with the picturesque pomp of your dress, and here you are in the broad light of the 19th century, gotten up like the ragtag and bobtail of the perilous New York for shame. Remember your ancestors, recall their mighty deeds, remember Uncas and Red Jacket and Hole in the Day, and whoop-a-doodle-doo. Emulate their achievements, unfurl yourselves under my banner and noble savages, illustrious Scots knights. Down with him, scoop the blackguard, burn him, hang him, drown him. It was the quickest operation that ever was. I simply saw a sudden flash in the air of clubs, brickbats, fists, speed baskets and moccasins. A single flash and they all appeared to hit me at once. I know two of them in the same place. The next instant the entire tribe were up on me. They tore off the clothes off me, they broke my arms and legs, they gave me a thumb that dented the top of my head till it would hold coffee like a saucer, and to crown their disgraceful proceedings and add insult to injury, they threw me over the Niagara Falls and I got wet. Okay, fair enough. I thought he was just going to make an ass of himself and that was going to be the joke. But no, them beating the ever-loving hell out of him, breaking all his limbs and throwing him over the falls is a fair and reasonable reaction. I judged you somewhat unfairly, Mark Twain, but I did not enjoy reading that. I still did not enjoy reading that all the same. There. About 90 or 100 feet from the top, the remains of my vest caught on the projecting rock, and I almost drowned before I could get loose. I finally fell and brought up in a world of white foam at the foot of the fall, whose sailed and bubbly masses towered up several inches above my head. Of course, I got into the eddy. I sailed round and round it, in it 44 times, chasing the ship and gaining on it, each round trip and half mile, reaching for the same bush on the bank 44 times, just as exactly missing it by hair's breadth every time. At last the man walked down and sat close to that bush and put a pipe in his mouth and lit a match, and followed me with one eye and kept the other on the match, while he sheltered it in his hand from the wind. Presently a puff of wind blew it out. Next time I swept round, he said, "Got a match?" "Yes, in my other vest. Help me out, please." "Not for Joe." "When I come round again," I said. "Excuse the seemingly impertinent curiosity of a drowning man, but you'll..." That's right now. When I come round again, I said, "Excuse the seemingly impertinent curiosity of a drowning man, but will you explain this singular conduct of yours?" "With pleasure. I'm the coroner. Don't hurry on my account, I can wait for you. But I wish I had a match." I said, "Take my place and I'll go get you one." He declined. This lack of confidence on his part created a coldness between us, and from that time forward I avoided him. It was my idea, in case anything happened, the so timely occurrence is to throw my custom into the hands of the opposition coroner over the American side. At last a policeman came along and arrested me for disturbing the peace by yelling at people on shore for help. The judge fined me, but I had the advantage of him. My money was with my pantaloons, and my pantaloons were with the Indians. Thus I escaped. I am now lying in a very critical condition, at least I am lying anyway, critical or not critical. I am hurt all over, but cannot tell the full extent yet, because the doctor has not done taking inventory. He will make up my manifest this evening. However, thus far he thinks only 60 of my wounds are fatal. I don't mind the others. Upon regaining my right mind, I said, "It is an awful savage tribe of Indians that do beadwork and moccasins for Niagara Falls, doctor. Where are they from?" "Limerick, my son." I thought they were transcribed in a sort of Irish dialect. Right, well, what do we make of that? I'm sort of torn. So we've got the first part, which is just sort of an accounting of the nature of Niagara Falls, which is fine, I guess. A little there, like, Mark Twain can be a bit of a downer sometimes, and this is certainly one of the points. Then the second half is this sort of interaction with the, Indians of Limerick, which I mean, the big speeches in the middle are very cringeworthy in my mind, and I don't love saying them, especially because they're racist connotations. But then, I mean, that is the joke, right? That he's an idiot, and he's the part of the joke here. And I mean, the patter afterwards is quite funny. Going round and round the falls, a coroner, all that sort of thing. But I don't know. Only 16 of my wounds is fatal is a pretty good line. But yeah, I don't know. Mixed bag altogether, I think. I think the racism does make me more uncomfortable, which probably hurts it more than it would have had at the time, which, you know, makes sense. I don't know. It's strange, really, isn't it, how time can change a piece. Because I'm sure back in the day, 1800s, this would have been an anti-racist piece of fiction. You know, the fella saying all these stupid things to the Native Americans is the one getting his Tarkington, and he's too stupid to know that he's actually talking to Irish people. But nowadays, just the whole monologue he leads into just sets my teeth on edge. I don't know. I made the choice when I started doing this that I was going to keep all the bad language and stuff in to sort of demonstrate, you know, this is how things were. I say the M word when it's in a text because I feel like you got wind up having, you know, people which got oppressed and threatened to get people lynched while using perfect PC language, which feels really stupid and undermines the point of it. But I do not love saying it, and I do not love reading it. Ugh. Still, it's not my job to like these, it's my job to read them. And I do that. Anyhow, what are we doing? Right, we're reviewing that book, which, I don't know, 6 out of mixed bag, really. Mixed bag. It does feel like sort of two very distinct stories as well. Like the stuff about actually being in Niagara Falls and all that feels like it's an actual like travelogue by, you know, an actual account of what he went through, and, you know, in a humorous term and all that. But then the second half is clearly a much more invented story, given that, as far as I'm aware, no Irish people who were mistaken for Indians broke all of his arms and legs. Which, you know, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it actually happened, and Mark Twain, I'm giving far too much benefit of the doubt, but I doubt it. Not my favourite of his. Not dreadful, just not great. Right. So let's be pushing on then, shall we? Playing Courier is the next one we got. Yeah. Here we go. Playing Courier. Originating in the English periodical The Illustrated London News in December 1881, this tale reappeared in the New York Sun 1 month later. It was collected in the £1 million banknote and other stories, and published by C.O. Webster, New York, in 1893. A time would come when we must go from Axel Baines to Geneva, and from thence by a series of day-long and tangled journeys to Bayreuth in Bavaria. I should have to have a courier, of course, to take care of so considerable a party of mine. But I procrastinated. The time slipped along, and I at last woke up one day to the fact that we were all ready to move and had no courier. I then resolved upon what I felt were a foolhardy thing, but I was in the humour of it. I said I would make the first stage without help. I did it. I brought the party from Aix to Geneva by myself, 4 people. The distance was 2 hours and more, and there were 1 change of cards. There were not an accident of any kind, except leaving a valise and some other matters on a platform, a thing which can hardly be called an accident, it is so common. I offered to conduct the party all the way to Bayreuth. This were a blunder, though it did not seem so at the time. There were more detail than I thought there would be. 2 persons who we had left in Geneva in a Genevan pension some weeks before must be collected and brought to the hotel. 2, I must notify the people on the Grand Quay who store trunks to bring 7 of our stored trunks to the hotel and carry back 7 which they would find piled in the lobby. 3, I must find out what parts of Europe Bayreuth we're in and buy 7 railway tickets for that point. 4, I must send a telegram to a friend in the Netherlands. 5, it were now 2 in the afternoon, and we must look sharp and be ready for the first night train and make sure of sleeping car tickets. 6, I must draw money at a bank. It seemed to me that the sleeping car tickets must be the most important thing, so I went to the station myself to make sure. Hotel messengers are not always brisk people. Here a hot day, and I was driven, but it seemed better economy to walk, It did not turn out so because I lost my way and travelled the distance. I applied for the tickets, and they asked me what route wanted to go, and that embarrassed me and made me lose my head. There were so many people standing around, and I not knowing anything about the routes, and not supposing there were going to be two. So I judged it best to go back and map out the road and come again. I took a cab this time, but on my way upstairs at the hotel I remembered that I were out of cigars, so I thought I would be able to get some, while the matter were in my mind. They were only round the corner, I didn't need the cab. I asked the cabman to wait where he was, thinking of the telegram and trying to word it in my head. I forgot the cigars in the cab and walked on indefinitely. I was going to have the hotel people send the telegram, but as I could not be far from the post office by this time, I thought I would do it myself. It was further than I had supposed. I found the place at last and wrote the telegram and handed it in. The clerk was a severe-looking fidgety man, and he began to fire French questions at me in such a liquid form that I could not detect the joints between his words, and this made me lose my head again. An Englishman stepped up and said the clerk wanted to know where he was to send the telegram. I could not tell him because it was not my telegram, and I explained that I was merely sending it for a member of my party, but nothing would pacify the clerk with the address. So I said if he was so particular, I'd go back and get it. However, I thought I would go and collect those lacking 2 persons first, for it would be best to do everything systematically and in order, and one detail at a time. Then I remembered the cab written up my substance down at the hotel yonder, so I called another cab and told the man to go down and fetch it to the post office and wait till I came. I had a long hot walk to collect those people, and when I got there they couldn't come with me because they had heavy satchels and must have a cab. I went away to find one, but before I ran across any, I noticed I had reached the neighbourhood of the Grand Quay. At least I thought I had. So I judged I could save my time by stepping around and arranging about the trunks. I stepped around about a mile, and although I did not find the Grand Quay, I found a cigar shop, and remembering about the cigars, I said I was going to Beirut and wanted enough for the journey. The man asked which route I was going to take. I said I did not know. He said he would recommend me go by Zurich and various other places, which he named, and offered to sell me 7 second-class through tickets for $22 apiece, which would be thrown off the discount which the railroad allowed him. I was already tired of riding second-class and first-class tickets, so I took him up. By and by, I found Natural and Company's storage office and told them to send 7 of our trunks to the hotel and pile them up in the lobby. It seemed strange to me that I was not delivering the whole of the message. Still, it was all I could find in my head. Next, I found the bank and asked for some money, but I had left my letter of credit somewhere and was not able to draw. I remembered now that I must have left it lying on the table where I wrote my telegram, so I got a cab and drove to the post office and went upstairs, and they said the letter of credit had indeed been left on the table, but were now in the hands of the police authorities, and it would be necessary for me to go there and prove property. They sent a boy with me, and we went out the back way and walked a couple of miles and found the place, and then I remembered about my cabs and asked the boy to send them to me when he got back to the post office. It was nightfall now, and the mayor had gone to dinner. I thought I would go to dinner myself, but the officer on duty thought differently, and I stayed. The mayor dropped in at 10:30, but said it was too late to do anything tonight. Come at 9:30 in the morning. The officer wanted to keep me all night, and I said I was a suspicious looking person and probably did not own the letter of credit. I didn't know what a letter of credit was, but merely saw the real owner leave it lying on the table and wanted to get it because there were probably a person who would want anything he could get, whether it were valuable or not. But the mayor said he saw nothing suspicious about me, and I seemed an harmless person and nothing the matter with me, but wandering mind and not much of that. So I thanked him and he set me free, and I went home in my 3 cabs. As I was dog-tired and in no condition to answer questions with discretion, I thought I would not disturb the expedition at the time of night, as there were a vacant room I knew of at the other end of the hall. But I did not quite arrive there as a watch had been set, the expedition being anxious about me. I was placed in a galling situation. The expedition sat stiff and forbearing on 4 chairs in a row, with shawls and things all on, satchels and guard books in lap. They had been sitting like that for 4 hours, and the glass was going down all the time. Yes, they were waiting for me. It seemed to me that nothing but a sudden, happily contrived and brilliant tour de force could break the eye in front and make a diversion in my favour. So I shoved my hat in the arena and followed it with a skip and a jump, shouting blithely, "Ha ha! Here we all are, Mr. Merriman." Nothing could be deeper or stiller than the absence of applause which followed. But I kept on. There seemed no other way. There seemed no other way. And my confidence, pouring up before it, had got a deadly check and was in effect gone. I tried to be jocund out of an heavy art. I tried to touch other arts there and soften the bitter resentment in those faces by throwing off a bright and airy fun and making the old ghastly thing a joyously humorous incident. This idea were not well conceived. It were not the right atmosphere for it. I got not one smile, not one line in those off-ended faces relaxed. I thought nothing of winter that looked out of those frosty eyes. I started one more breezy, poor effort, but the head of the expedition cut in the centre of it and said, "Where have you been?" I saw the manner of this. The idea was to get down to cold business now. So I began my travels, but were cut short again. Where are the 2 others we have been in a frightful anxiety about? "Oh, they're all right. I was to fetch a cab. I'll go straight off and sit down. Don't you know it's 11 o'clock? Where did you leave them?" "At the pension." "Why didn't you bring them?" "Because we couldn't carry the satchels." And so I thought? You should try not to think. One cannot think without a proper machinery. It is 2 miles to that pension. Did you go there without a cab?" Well, I didn't intend to. It only happened so." "Well, how did it happen so?" "Well, because I was at the post office and I remembered that I had left a cab waiting here, and so to stop the expense I sent another cab to what?" "I don't remember now, but I think the cab was to have the other hotel pay the old cab and send it away." "What good would that do?" What good would it do? It would stop the expense, wouldn't it? By putting the new cab in its place to continue the expense. I didn't say anything. Why didn't you have the new cab come back for you? Oh, that's what I did, I remember now. Yes, this is what I did. Because I recollect that when I... Well, then why didn't it come back for you? To the post office? What I did. Very well then, how did you come to walk to the pension? I don't quite remember how that happened. Oh yes, I do. I remember now. I wrote the dispatch to send to the Netherlands and... Oh, thank goodness you did accomplish something. I wouldn't have had you fail to send... What makes you look like that? You're trying to avoid my eye? That dispatch is the most important thing. You haven't sent the dispatch. I haven't said I didn't send it. You don't need to. Oh dear, I wouldn't have had the telegram fail for anything. Why didn't you send it? Well, you see, with so many things to do and think of, they're very particular there, and after I've written the telegram, oh, never mind, let it go. Explanations can't help the matter now. What will he think of it? Oh, that's all right. He'll think we gave the telegram to the hotel people, won't they? Why, certainly, why didn't you do that? There was no other rational way. Yes, I know, but then I had it on my mind that I must sure and get to the bank and draw some money. Well, you're entitled to some credit after all, thinking of that. I don't wish to be too hard on you, though you must acknowledge yourself to have cost us a good deal of trouble, and some of it not necessary. How much did you draw? Well, I had an idea that... What are you mooning about? Do turn your face this way. Why haven't you drawn any money? Well, the banker said... Never mind what the banker said. You must have had a reason of your own. Not a reason exactly. Something... Well, the simple fact was that I hadn't my letter of credit. You hadn't your letter of credit. I hadn't my letter of credit. Don't repeat me like that. Where was it? At the post office. What was it doing there? Well, I forgot it and left it there. On my word, I have seen a good many couriers, but of all the couriers that I've done the best I could. Well, so you have, poor thing, and I want to abuse you so well when you've been working yourself to death while we've been sitting here only thinking of our vexations, instead of feeling grateful for what you're trying to do for us. And well, will come out right, we can take the 7:30 train in the morning just as well. You brought the tickets? I have. And it's a bargain too, second class. I'm glad of it. Everyone else travels second class, and we might just as well save the ruinous extra charge. What did you pay? $22 a piece through Bayreuth. Well, I didn't know you could buy tickets through anywhere but London and Paris. Some people can't, maybe, but some people can, of whom I am one, which it appears. Seems rather a high price. On the contrary, the dealer knocked up his commission. Dealer? Yes, I bought them at the cigar shop. That reminds me, we shall have to go up and get up pretty early, and so there should be no package, do? Your umbrella, your rubbers, and your cigars. What is the matter? Hang on, I've left the cigars at the bank. Just think of it. Well, your umbrella? I'll have that all right, there's no hurry. What do you mean by that? Oh, that's all right, I'll take care of it. Where is the umbrella? It's just the merest. It won't take me. Where is it? Well, I think I left it at the cigar shop. But anyway, take your feet out from under that thing. It's just as I expected. Where are your rubbers? It's got so dry now. Everyone says there's going to be another drop. But where are your rubbers? Well, you see, it was this way. First the officer said, what officer? A police officer. But the mayor, what mayor? The mayor of Geneva. But I said, wait. What is the matter with you? Oh, me? Nothing. They both tried to persuade me to stay. Stay where? Well, the fact is, where have you been? What's kept you out till 10:30 at night? Oh, well, you see, after I lost my letter of credit, you are beating around the bush a good deal. Now answer the question in just one straight word. Where are those rubbers? Well, they're in the county jail. I started up a and smiled, but it petrified. The climate were unsuitable. Spending 3 or 4 hours in jail did not seem the expedition humorous. Neither did it to me at the bottom. I had to explain the whole thing, and of course it came out then that we couldn't take the early train because that would leave my letter of credit in Oxhill. It did look as if we had got to go to bed estranged and unhappy, but by good luck that was prevented. There happened to be a mention of the trunks, and I was able to say I attend to that feature. There you are, just as good and thoughtful and painstaking and intelligent as you can be. And it's a shame to find so much fault with you, and there shan't be another word of it. You've done beautifully, admirably. I'm sorry I ever said one ungrateful word to you. Is it deeper than some of the other things that made me uncomfortable? Because I wasn't feeling as solid about the trunks errand as I wanted to. There seemed somehow to be a defect about it somewhere. I couldn't put my finger on it, and I didn't like to stir the matters just now, it being late, and maybe well enough to be let well enough alone. Of course, there were music in the morning, which were found that we could when it was found that we couldn't leave by the early train. But I had no time to wait. I got only the opening bars of the overture, and then started out to get my letter of credit. It seemed a good time to look into the trunk business and rectify it if needed. I had a suspicion that I did. It was too late. The concierge said he had shipped the trunks to Zurich the evening before. I asked him how we could do that without exhibiting passage tickets. Not necessary in Switzerland. You pay for your trunks and send them when you please. Nothing goes free but your hand baggage. How much did you pay on them? 140 francs. $28. There's something wrong about that. Trunk business, sure. Next I met the porter. He said, "You have not slept well, sir. It is not. You have the worn look. You have the worn look. If you would like a good carrier, a good one has arrived last night and is not engaged for 5 days already. By the name of Ludi. We recommend him. Das heißt, the Grand Hotel Boulevard recommends him." I declined with coldness. My spirit were not broken yet, and I did not have my condition taken notice of in this way. I read the country Dale by 9 o'clock, hoping that the mayor might chance to come before his regular hour, but he didn't. It was dull there. Every time I offered to touch anything, or look at anything, or do anything, or refrain from doing anything, the policeman said it was défendu. I thought I would practice my French on him, but he wouldn't have that either. It seemed to make him particularly bitter to hear his own tongue. The mayor come at last, and there were no trouble, for the minute he had convened the Supreme Court, I always do whenever there's a valuable property in dispute, and got everything shipshape, the sentries posted, and had a prayer by the chaplain, my unsealed letter was brought and opened, and there wasn't anything in it but some photographs, because I remembered now I had taken out the letter of credit so as to make room for the photographs, and to put the letter in my other pocket, which I proved to everybody's satisfaction by fetching it out and showing it with a good deal of exultation. So then the court looked at each other in a vacant kind of way, and then at me, and then at each other again, and finally let me go. They said it were imprudent for me to be at large, and asked me what my profession was. I said I were a courier. They lifted their eyes in a kind of reverent way and said, "De libre gut," and I said a word of courteous thanks for their apparent admiration, and I ran off to the bank. However, being a courier was already making me a great stickler for order and system, and one thing at a time, and each thing in its own proper turn, so I passed by the bank and branched off and started for 2 lacking members of the expedition. A cab blazed by, and I took it up on persuasion. I gained no speed by this, but we were a repurposeful turnabout, and I like repurposefulness. A week-long jubilation over the 600th anniversary of the birth of Swiss liberty, and the signing of the compact were at flood tide, and all the street were clothed in fluttering flags. The horse and the driver had been drunk 3 days and nights, and no stool nor bed meantime. They looked as I felt, dreamy and seedy. We arrived in course of time. I went in and rang and asked the housemaid to rush out the lacking members. She said something which I did not understand, and returned to the chariot. The girl had probably told me that those people did not belong on her floor, and that it would be judicious for me to go higher and ring from floor to floor till I found them. With no Swiss flaps, there does not seem to be any way to find their own family but to be patient and guess your way along up. I calculated that I must wait 15 minutes, there being 3 details inseparable from an occasion of this sort. 1. I put on my hats and come down and climb in. 2. Return 1 to get my other glove. 3. And presently return out the other one to fetch my French verb at a glance. I've mused during the 15 minutes to take it easy. A very still and blank interval ensued, and then I felt an hand upon my shoulder and started. The intruder were a policeman. I glanced up and perceived that they were a new scenery. There were a good deal of a crowd, and they had that pleased and interested look which such a crowd wears when they see that somebody is out of luck. The horse were asleep, and so were the driver, and some boys had hung them, and me, full of gaudy decorations, stolen from the innumerable banner poles. It was a scandalous spectacle. The officer said, "I'm sorry, but we can't have you sleeping here all day." I was wounded and said with dignity, "I beg your pardon, I were not sleeping, I were thinking." "Well, you can think if you want to, but you've got to think to yourself. You disturb the whole neighbourhood." It was a poor joke, and it made the crowd laugh. I snore at night sometimes, but it is not likely that I would do such a thing in the daytime and in such a place. The officer undecorated us and seemed sorry for our friendliness, and really tried to be humane. He said we mustn't stop there any longer, or he would have to charge us rent. It was the law, he said, and he went on to say in a sociable way that I was looking pretty mouldy, and he wished he knew. I shut him off pretty austerely and said I hoped one might celebrate a little these days, especially when one were personally concerned. "Personally?" he asked. "How?" "It was 600 years ago an ancestor of mine signed the compact." He reflected a moment, then looked me over and said, "Ancestor? It is my opinion you signed it yourself. For all the old age and relics that I ever, but never mind about that. What is it you were waiting here for so long?" I said, "I'm not waiting here so long at all. I'm waiting 15 minutes till I forgot a glove and a book and go back and get them." And I told him who they were and that I'd come for. We were very obliged, and we began to shout inquiries to the tiers of heads and shoulders projecting from the windows above us. There were women, then a woman away up there sang out, "Oh, they? Well, I got my cab, and they left here long ago, 8:30, I should say." They were annoying. I glanced at my watch, but the watch didn't say anything. The officer said, "It is 12:15, you see. You should have inquired better. We've been asleep 3/4 of an hour in such a sun as this. You are baked black. It is wonderful, and you will miss your train, perhaps. You wouldn't test me correctly. What is your occupation?" I said we were a courier. It seemed to stun him, and before he could come to, we were gone. When I arrived in the 3rd story of the hotel, I found our quarters vacant. I was not surprised. The moment a courier takes his eye off his tribe, they go shopping. The nearer it is to train time, the surer they are to go. I sat down to try and think out what I had best do next. Presently I found the Allboy family there, and said the expedition had gone to the station half an hour before. It was the first time I had known them to do a rational thing, and it was very confusing. This is one of the things that makes a courier's life so difficult and uncertain. Just as matters are going the smoothest, as people will strike at lucid interval and go down all his arrangements to wreck and ruin. The train will leave at 12 noon sharp. It was now 10 minutes after 12. I could be at the station in 10 minutes. I saw I had no great amount of leeway, for this was the Lightning Express, and on the continent, the Lightning Express is pretty fastidious about getting away sometime during the advertised day. My people were the only ones remaining in the waiting room. Everybody else had passed through and mounted the train, as they say, in those regions. They were exhausted with nervousness and the fret, but I comforted them and heartened them up, and so we made a rush. But no, we were out of luck again. The doorkeeper were not satisfied with the tickets. He examined them cautiously, deliberately, suspiciously, Then glared at me a while, and after that he called another official, and to examine the tickets and called another official. These called others, and the convention discussed and gesticulated and carried on until I begged that they would consider our time were flying and just pass a few resolutions and let us go. Then they said very courteously that there were a defect in the tickets and asked me where I got them. I judged I saw what the trouble was. It was not. You see, I had bought the tickets in a cigar shop, and of course the tobacco smell were on them. Without doubt, the thing they were up to were work the tickets through a custom house and collect them duty on the smell. So a result, to be perfectly frank, is sometimes the best way. Gentlemen, I will not deceive you. These railway tickets. Pardon, monsieur, these are not railway tickets. Ah? I said, is that the defect? Actually, yes, monsieur. These are lottery tickets, and it is a lottery which has been drawn 2 years ago. I affected to be greatly amused. It is all one can do in such a circumstance. It is all one can do, and yet there is no value in it. It deceives nobody, and you can see that everybody around pities you and is ashamed of you. One of the hardest situations in life, I think, is to be full of grief and a sense of defeat and shabbiness that way, and yet to have to put on the outside of archness and gaiety, while all the time you know your own expedition and the treasure you are, and whose love and reverence you are by the custom of our civilization entitled to, are being consumed with humiliation before strangers, to see you earning and getting a compassion which is a stigma, a brand which certifies you to be anything and everything which is fatal in human respect. I said cheerily that it was all right, it was just one of those little accidents that were likely to happen to anybody. I'd have the right tickets in 2 minutes and we would catch the train yet, and moreover have something to laugh about all through the journey. I did get the tickets in time, all stamped and complete, but then it turned out I couldn't take them because, taking so much pains about the 2 missing members, I had skipped the bank and hadn't the money. So then the train left, and there didn't seem to be anything to do but go back to the hotel, which we did. We were kind of melancholy and not much said. I tried to start a few subjects like scenery and transubstantiation, those sorts of things, but they didn't seem to hit the weather right. We had lost our good rooms, but we got some others which were pretty scattering, but would answer. I judged things would brighten up now, but the head of the expedition said, "Send up the trunks." It made me feel pretty cold. There was doubtful something about the trunks business, I was almost sure of it. I was going to suggest that a wave of the hand sufficiently restrained me, and I were informed that we would now camp for 3 days to see if we could rest up. I said, alright, never mind ring, and I would go down and tend to the trunks myself. I got a cab and went straight to Mr. Charles Natural's place and asked what order it was I had left there. Send 7 trunks to the hotel. And were you to bring any back? No. You sure I didn't tell you to bring any back? To bring back 7 that would be found in the pile in the lobby? Absolutely sure you didn't. And the old 14 had gone to Zurich or Jericho or somewhere, and there's going to be more debris around the hotel and the expedition. I didn't finish because my mum were getting to be in a good deal of whirl. And when you are that way, you think you have finished a sentence when you haven't, and you go mooring and dreaming away, and the first thing you know, you get run over by a dray or a cow or something. I left the cab there, I forgot it. On my way back, I thought it all out and concluded to resign, because otherwise I should be nearly sure to be discharged. I didn't believe it would be a good idea to resign in person. I could do it by message. So I sent for Mr. Lundy and explained that there were a courier going to resign on account of incompatibility or fatigue or something. And as he had 4 or 5 vacant days, I would like to insert him into that vacancy, if he thought he could fill it. When everything were arranged, I got him to go up and say to the expedition that owing to an error made by Mr. Natural's people, we were out of trunks here, we'd have plenty in Zurich, and that we'd better take the first train, freight, gravel or construction, and move right along. He attended to that and come down with an invitation for me to go up. Yes, certainly. And while we walked along over the bank to get the money and collect my cigars and tobacco, and the cigar shop to trade back the lottery tickets and get my umbrella, and Mr. Natural's to pay that cab and send it away, and to the county down to get my rubbers and leave PPC cards for the Mayor and Supreme Court, he described the weather to me that were prevailing in the upper levels that there were with the expedition. I saw that I was doing well where I was. I stayed out in the woods till 4 p.m. to let the weather moderate, and then turned up at the station just in time to take the 3 o'clock express for Zurich along with the expedition, now in the hands of Lundy, who conducted the complex affairs with little apparent effort or inconvenience. Well, I had worked like a slave while I was in the office, and done the very best I knew how. Yet all these people dwelt upon or seemed to care or remember were the defects of my administration, not its credible features. They had to give her 1,000 creditable features to remark upon and reiterate and fuss about just one fact. It seemed to me they would wear it out, and not much of a fact either, taken by itself. The fact that I elected myself courier in Geneva and put in work enough to carry a circus to Jerusalem, and it never even got my gang out of town. I finally said I didn't wish to hear any more about the subject. It made me tired. And I told them to their faces that I would never be a courier again to save anybody's life. And if I live long enough, I'll prove it. I think it's a difficult, brain-wrecking, overworked and thoroughly ungrateful office, and the main bulk of its wages is a sore heart and a bruised spirit. I enjoyed that, yeah. Happy with that one. Bit of a better one, I think. Oof. My throat is starting to give me grief. I definitely shouldn't have done the whole of The Great Gatsby in one sitting, but right. yeah, I mean that one was basically just pure patter on Twain's part. Using little comedy errors, all told in a sort of flowing, rambling style that really does suit him. As somebody can be a bit absent-minded myself, I find myself quite sympathetic to this poor fella who elects himself Courier. Or well, sympathetic to his actions, perhaps not his choice to elect himself Courier at any rate. Oh. Still, all told, pretty solid. Pretty solid indeed. I don't think there's a lot to be said about this one, really. I mean, there's some details I'm sure you can find about European geography. I'm sure it's interesting in a sort of historical sense as to the minutiae required to travel at the time period, but I can't rightly say that I've got a lot to say about it myself. It's just a bit of fun, really. Not too much depth, but entertaining enough. Oh. It's warm down here today, I don't know why. Lord almighty, right. Now, extracts from Adam's diary and Eve's diary are both a bit longer than those two. So I suspect we'll make it to the 2-hour mark. If we read them, which I should. Ugh. God, I'm only just now noticing quite how warm it is. Can't I? Yeah. It's hot in there. Some of the steam parts must be running. Mad. I'm quite tempted to stop actually, but we press on. I know Lance been wanting me to do longer ones of these, and I said I would do every day this month, and I've done every day this month, but some of them I only did for half an hour, so I've got some time, some ground to make up. And now, let's do the extras from Adam's diary, and then if we really put out, we'll stop there and do Eve's tomorrow first thing, and then a couple more. And then we'll try and push through. God, I'm really starting to feel the heat. God, I was too into that. I wasn't noticing it, but it seems like it's got crazy warm. Mad. Well, there's no point dwelling on it. Let's get on, shall we? Extracts from Adam's diary, translated from the original manuscript. The original version of this story, Adam's diary, was composed sometime before spring of 1893, when Twain desperately needed money. Charles and Irvin Underhill came to Twain looking for a humorous piece involving Niagara Falls. Although he originally resisted the offer, Twain realised he could adapt his unpublished Adam's diary by relocating the Garden of Eden to Niagara Falls. The unfinished version appeared in the Niagara book published by Underhill and Nicholas in Buffalo, 1893. Twain cut all the references to Niagara Falls when the story appeared in the London edition of Tom Sawyer, Detective, in 1897. The original version was later reprinted in 1931, along with Eve's diary as The Private Lives of Adam and Eve. Editor. No, I translated a portion of this diary some years ago, and a friend of mine printed a few copies in an incomplete form, but the public never got them. Since then, I've deciphered some more of Adam's hieroglyphics and think he has now become sufficiently important as a public character to justify their publication. MT. Monday. This new creature with the long hair is a good deal in the way. He's always hanging around and following me about. I don't like this. I'm not used to company. I wish it would stay with the other animals. Cloud in the day, wind in the east. Think we should have rain. We? When did I get that word? I remember now, the new creature uses it. Tuesday. Been examining the great waterfall. It's the finest thing on the estate, I think. The new creature calls it Niagara Falls. Why, I'm not sure. I do not know. Says it looks like Niagara Falls. That is not a reason. It is merely waywardness and imbecility. I get no chance to name anything myself. The new creature names everything that comes along before I can get it in protest. And almost the same pretext as offers, it looks like the thing. There's the dodo, for instance. Says the moment one looks at it and sees it at a glance, that it looks like a dodo. I'll have to keep that name, no doubt. It wearies me to fret about it and does no good anyway. Dodo. Doesn't know more like a dodo than I do. Wednesday. Built me a shelter against the rain, but could not have it to myself in peace. The new creature intruded. When I tried to put it out it shed water on out of the holes and it looks with and wiped it away with the back of its paw and made a noise such as the other animals make when they are in distress. I wish it would not talk. It is always talking. That sounds like a cheap fling at the poor creature, a slur, but I do not mean it so. I have heard the human voice before, and any new and strange sound intruding itself here is a solemn march of those dreaming solitude which offends my ears and seems a false note. And this new sound is so close to me, it is right on my shoulder, right in my ear, first on one side then the other, and I'm used only to sounds that are more or less distant from me. Friday. The naming goes recklessly on in spite of anything I can do. I had a very good name for the estate, and it were musical and pretty, Garden of Eden. Privately I continue to call it that, but not any longer publicly. My new creature says it is all woods and rocks and scenery, and therefore has no resemblance to a garden. It says it looks like a park, and does not look like anything but a park. Consequently, without consulting me, it has been new named Niagara Falls Park. This is sufficiently high-handed to seem them, it seems to me. Already there is a sign up. Keep off the grass. My life is not as happy as it was. Saturday. The new creature eats too much fruit. We're going to run short. Most likely. We again. That is its word. Mine too now, from hearing it so much. Good deal of fog this morning. I do not go out in the fog myself. The new creature does. It goes out in all weather and stumps right up in with its muddy feet and talks. Used to be so pleasant and quiet here. Sunday. Pulled through. This day is getting to be more and more trying. It was selected to set apart last November as a day of rest. I already had 6 of them per week before. This morning found the new creature trying to clod apples out of the forbidden tree. Monday. The new creature says its name is Eve. That is all right. I have no objections. Says it is to call it by when I want it to come. I said it was superfluous then. The word evidently raised me in its respect, and indeed it is a large good word, and it will bear repetition. It says it is not in it, but a she. This is probably doubtful. It is all one to me. What she is were nothing to me if she would but go by herself and not talk. Tuesday. She had lit the old estate with the execrable names and offensive signs. This way to the Whirlpool, this way to Goat Island, Cave of the Winds this way. She says this park would make a tidy summer resort if there were any custom for it. Summer resort, another invention of hers. Just words without any meaning. What is a summer resort? It is for the breast not to ask her. She has such a rage for explaining. Friday. She is sent to beseeching me to stop going over the falls. What harm does it do? Does it make her shudder? I wonder why. I've always done it. Always liked the plunge and the excitement and the coolness. I suppose it was what the falls were for. They have no other use to that, I can see, and they must have been made for something. She says they were only made for scenery, like the rhinoceros and the mastodon. Went over the falls in a barrel, not satisfactory to her. Went over in a tub, still not satisfactory. Swam the Whirlpool and the rapids in a fig leaf suit. They got much damaged. Hence tedious complaints about my extravagance. I am too much hampered here. What I need is a change of scene. Saturday. I escaped last Tuesday night and travelled 2 days and built me another shelter in a secluded place and obliterated my tracks as well as I could. But she hunted me out by means of a beast which she has tamed and calls a wolf, and came making that pitiful noise again and shedding that water out of the places she looks with. I am obliged to return with her, but will presently emigrate again when occasion offers. She engages herself in many foolish things, among others trying to study out why the animals called lions and tigers live on grass and flowers, when, as she says, the sort of teeth they wear would indicate that they intend to eat each other. This is foolish, because to do that would be to kill each other, and that would introduce what, as I understand it, is called death. And death, as I've been told, has not yet entered the park, which is a pity on some accounts. Sunday, pulled through. Monday. I believe I see what the week is for. It is to give time to rest up from the weariness of Sunday. It seemed a good idea. She's been climbing that tree again. Plod her out of it. She said nobody were looking. Seemed to consider that sufficient justification for chancing any dangerous thing. Told her that. The word justification moved her admiration, and envy too, I thought. It is a good word. Tuesday. She told me she were made out of a rib taken from her body. This is at least doubtful, if not merely that. If not more than that. I have not missed her any rib. She is in much trouble about the buzzard, as grass does not agree with it. In fact, she can't raise it, thinks it was intended to live on decayed flesh. The buzzard must get along the best it can with what it is provided. You cannot overturn the old scheme to accommodate the buzzard. Saturday. She fell in the pond yesterday, when she was looking for herself in it, which she's always doing. She nearly strangled and said it were most uncomfortable. This made her sorry for the creatures which live in there, which she calls fish, but she continues to fasten names on the things that don't need them and don't come when they are called by them, which is a matter of no consequence to her, as she is such a numbskull anyway. So she got a lot of them out and brought them in last night and put them into my bed to keep warm. But I've noticed them now, and then all day, and I don't see that they are any happier than they were before, only quieter. When night comes, I shall throw them outdoors. I will not sleep with them again, for I find them clammy and unpleasant to lie among when a person hasn't anything on. Sunday, pulled through. Tuesday. She is taken up with the snake now. The other animals are glad, for she will always experiment with them and bothering them. And I am glad because the snake talks, and this enables me to get a rest. Friday. She says the snake advises her to try the fruit of the tree, and says the result will be a great and fine and noble education. I told her there would be another result too. It would be introduced death into the world. That were a mistake. It had been better to keep the remark to myself. It only gave her an idea. She could save the sick buzz and furnish fresh meat to the despondent lions and tigers. I advised her to keep away from the tree. She said she wouldn't. I'll foresee trouble. We'll emigrate. Wednesday. I have had a variegated time. I escaped that night and rode an horse all night as fast as I could go, hoping to clear out of the park and hide in some other country before the trouble should begin. But we're not to be. About half an hour after sunup, as I was riding through a flowery plain with thousands of animals grazing, slumbering or playing with each other according to their want, all of a sudden they broke into a tempest of frightful noise, and in one moment the plain were in frantic commotion, and every beast would destroy its neighbour. I knew what it meant. Eve had eaten the fruit, and death would come into the world. The tigers ate my horse, paying no attention when I ordered them to desist, and they would even have eaten me if I had stayed, which I didn't, but went away in such haste. I found this place outside the park, and were fairly comfortable for a few days, but she had found me out, and has named the place Tonawanda, says it looks like that. In fact, I were not sorry she came, for there are but meagre pickers here, and she brought some of the apples. I were obliged to eat them. I was so hungry. They were against my principle, but I find that principles are no real force except when one is well fed. She came curtained in boughs and bunches of leaves, and when I asked her what she meant by such nonsense, and snatched them away and threw them down, she tittered and blushed. I had never seen a person titter and blush before, and to me it seemed unbecoming and idiotic. She said I would soon know how it was myself. This were correct. Hungry as I was, I laid down the apple half eaten, certainly the best one I ever saw, considering the lateness of the season, and arrayed myself in the discarded boughs and branches, and I spoke to her with some severity in order to go and get some more and not make such a spectacle of herself. She did it, and after this we crept down to where the wild beast battle had been and collected some skins, and I made her patch together a couple of suits properly for public occasions. They're uncomfortable, it's true, but stylish, and that's the main point about clothes. I find she's a good deal of competition. I find she is a good deal of a companion. I see I should be lonesome and depressed without her, now that I have lost my property. Another thing, she says it is ordered that we work for our living hereafter. She will be useful. I will superintend. 10 days later. She accuses me of being the cause of our disaster. She says, with apparent sincerity and truth, that the serpent assured her that the forbidden fruit were not apples, it were chestnuts. I said I were innocent then, for I had not eaten any chestnuts. She said the serpent informed her that the chestnut were a figurative term meaning an aged and mouldy joke. I turned pale at that, for I have made many jokes to pass the weary time, and some of them could have been of that sort, though I honestly supposed they were new when I made them. She asked me if I had made one just at the time of the catastrophe. I were obliged to admit that I had made one to myself, though not aloud. It was this. I was thinking about the falls, and I said to myself, how wonderful it is to see the vast body of water tumble down there. In an instant a bright thought flashed in my head, and I let it fly, saying it would be a deal more wonderful to see it tumble up there. And I was just about to kill myself with laughing at it when all nature broke loose in war and death, and I had to flee for my life. There, she said with triumph. That's just it. The serpent mentioned the very jest and called it the first chestnut, and said it was coeval with the creation. Alas, I am indeed to blame. Would that I were not witty. Oh, would that I had never had the radiant thought. Next year. We have named it Cain. She caught it while I were up the country, chapping on the north shore of the Erie. Caught it in the timber a couple of miles along from our dugout. Or might have been 4, she isn't certain which. It resembles us in some way and may be a relation. That's what she thinks, but this is an error in my judgment. The difference in size warrants the conclusion that it is different, and a new kind of animal. A fish, perhaps, though when I put it in the water to see it sank, and she plunged and snatched it out before there were opportunity for the experiment to determine the matter. I still think it is a fish, but she is indifferent about what it is, and will not let me have it to try. I do not understand this. The colour of the creature seems to have changed her whole nature and made her unreasonable about experiments. She thinks more of it than she does of any other animals, but is not able to explain why. Her mind is disordered. Everything shows it. Sometimes she carries a fish in her arms in after night when it complains and wants to get in the water. At such times the water comes out of the places in her face that she looks out of, and she pats the fish on the back and makes soft sounds with her mouth to soothe it, and betrays sorrow and solicitude in 100 ways. I've never seen her do like this with any other fish, and it troubles me greatly. She used to carry the young tigers around so and play with them before we lost our property. But it were only play. She never took on about them like this when their dinner disagreed with them. Sunday. She doesn't work Sundays, but lies around all tired out and likes to have the fish wallow over her as she makes fool noises to amuse it, and relents to dew its paws, and that makes it laugh. I've not seen a fish before that could laugh. This makes me doubt. I've come to like Sunday myself. Superintending all the week tires the body so. Ought to be more Sundays. In the old days they were tough, but now they come in handy. Wednesday. It isn't a fish. I cannot quite make out what it is. It makes curious devilish noises when not satisfied, and says goo goo when it is. It is not one of us, for it doesn't walk. It is not a bird, for it doesn't fly. It is not a frog, for it doesn't hop. It is not a snake, for it don't crawl. I feel sure it is not a fish, though I cannot get a chance to find out whether it can swim or not. It merely lies around, and mostly on its back with its feet up. I've not seen any other animal do that before. I said I believed it were an enigma, but she only admired the word without understanding it. In my judgment, it is either an enigma or some kind of bug. If it does, I will take it apart and see what its arrangements are. Never had a thing perplex me, Sly. 3 months later, the perplexity augments instead of diminishing. I sleep but little. It ceased from lying around and goes about on its forelegs now. Yet it differs from the other four-legged animals in that its front legs are unusually short. Consequently, this causes the main part of its person to stick up uncomfortably high in the air. This is not attractive. It is built much as we are, but its method of travelling shows that it is not of our breed. The short front legs and long arm ones indicate that it is of the kangaroo family, but it is marked variation to the species, as the true kangaroo hops, whereas this one never does. Still, it is a curious and interesting variety, and has not yet been catalogued before. As I discovered it, I have felt justified in securing the credit of the discovery by attaching my name to it. I've hence called it Kangaroom adamensis. Must have been a young one when it came, for it has grown exceedingly since. Must be 5 times as big now as it was then, and when discontented, is able to make from 22 to 38 times the noise it made at first. Coercion does not modify this, but has the contrary effect. For this reason, I discontinued the system. She reconciles it by persuasion and by giving it things which she had previously told it she wouldn't give it. As already observed, I was not at home when it first came, and she told me she found it in the woods. Seems odd that it should be the only one, yet it must be so, for I haven't worn myself out these many weeks trying to find another one to add to my collection. And for this one, play with, for surely then it would be quieter, and we could tame it more easily. But I find none, nor any vestige of any, and strangest of all, no tracks. It has to live on the ground, it cannot help itself. Therefore, I has to get about without leaving a track. I've set a dozen traps, but they do no good. I catch all small animals except that one. Animals that merely go in for the trap out of curiosity, I think, to see what the milk is there for. They never drink it. 3 months later, the kangaroo still continues to grow, which is very strange and perplexing. I never knew one to be so long in getting its growth. It has fur on its head now, not like kangaroo fur exactly, but exactly like Ira. Except that it is much finer and softer, and instead of being black, it is red. I'm like to lose my mind over the capricious and harassing developments of this unclassified zoological freak. If I could catch another one, it is hopeless. It is a new variety, and the only sample, this is plain. I caught a true kangaroo and brought it in, thinking that this one, being lonesome, would rather have that for company than have no kin at all, or any animal could feel a nearness to or get sympathy from, in its forlorn condition here among strangers, who do not know its ways or habits, or what to do to make it feel that it is among friends. But it were a mistake. It went into such fits at the sight of the kangaroo that I was convinced it had never seen one before. I pity the poor noisy little animal, but there is nothing I can do to make it happy. If I could tame it, that's out of the question. The more I try, the worse I seem to make it. It grieves me in the heart to see it in its little storms of sorrow and passion. I wanted to let it go, but she wouldn't hear of it. That seems cruel. I'm not like her. Yet she may be right. It might be lonelier than ever, but since I cannot find another one, how could it? 5 months later. It is not a kangaroo. No, for it supports itself by holding to her finger, and thus goes a few steps on its hind legs, and then falls down. It's probably some kind of a bear. It has no tail, and as yet no fur, except on its head. It keeps on growing. That is a curious circumstance, for bears get their growth earlier than this. That is dangerous, such a catastrophe, and I shall not be satisfied to have this one prowling about the place much longer without a muzzle on. I wanted to get her a kangaroo if she would let this one go, but it did no good. She is determined to run us into all sorts of foolish risks, I think. She would not like this before she lost her mind. A fortnight later, I examined its mouth. There is no danger yet. It has only one tooth. It has no tail yet. It makes more noise now than it ever did before, and mainly at night. I have moved out, but I shall go over mornings to breakfast and to see if it has more teeth. If it gets a mouthful of teeth, it will be time for it to go. Tail or no tail, for a bear does not need a tail in order to be dangerous. 4 months later, I have been off hunting and fishing for a month up in the region that she calls Buffalo. I don't know why, unless it is because there are not any buffaloes there. Meantime, the bear has learned to paddle around by itself on its hind legs and say Papa and Mama. It is certainly only a species. This resemblance to words may be purely accidental, of course, and may have no purpose or meaning, but even in that case it is still extraordinary, and a thing which no other bear can do. This imitation of speech, taken together with general absence of fur and entire absence of tail, sufficiently indicates that this is a new kind of bear. A further study of it will be exceedingly interesting. Meantime, I will go off on a fire expedition among the forests of the north and make an exhaustive search. There must certainly be another one somewhere, and this one will be less dangerous when it has company of its own species. I will go straight away, but I will muzzle this one first. 3 months later. It's been a weary hunt, yet I have had no success. In the meantime, without stirring from the her mistake, she's caught another one. I never saw such luck. I've hunted these woods 100 years. I never should have run across the thing. Next day. I've been comparing the new one with the old one, and it's perfectly plain that they are the same breed. I'm going to stuff one of them for my collection, but she is prejudiced against it for some reason or other, so I've relinquished the idea, and I think it's a mistake. It will be an irreparable loss to science, or if they should get away. The old one is tamer than it was, and can laugh and talk like the parrot, having learned this, no doubt, from being with the parrot so much, and having the imitative faculty in a highly developed degree. I should be astonished if it turns out to be a new kind of parrot, yet I ought not to be astonished, for it has already been everything else I could think of, since the first days when it were a fish. The new one is ugly now as the old one was at first, has the same sulphur and raw meat complexion, and the same singular head without any fur on it. She calls it Abel. 10 years later. The other boys, we found out long ago. They're coming in that small immature shape that puzzled us. We're not used to it. There are some girls now. Abel's a good boy, but if Cain had stayed there, it would have improved him. After all these years, I see that I was mistaken about Eve in the beginning. It's better to live outside the garden with her than inside it without her. At first I thought she talked too much, but now I should be sorry to have the voice fall silent and pass out of my life. Blessed be the chestnut that brought us near together and taught me to know the goodness of her heart and the sweetness of her spirit. That's the end. That's a bit of an odd one. I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. I think in a lot of ways it's just sort of a comedic take on the idea of, the first man and woman. What would it be like to be that man, experiencing the world all unknown and strange? And obviously you had the comedic terms of the children sort of being dehumanised and examined as though they were strange creatures and all that. Inherent comedy on it. And a little bit of the old man hates his wife humour, which, I think it can be alright if it's not too mean-spirited. And with the end, I don't think it's too mean-spirited. Yeah. I don't know, really. This is one of those ones where I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but it didn't really tickle me personally, Like, it's competently written and constructed and all well enough, but yeah. I didn't get a lot out of it personally. I sort of feel like I've seen the same sort of thing done before and maybe done better. Which is, it's the same how I felt about, which one was it? That's it, The Stolen White Elephant. I read that one and thought, as I was reading it, this is something I've seen before and seen done better. Which is a shame, because I'm sure it's like, I'm told by Lamp the White Elephant specifically is a very famous one of Twain's and was very well regarded. And so I imagine at the time it was very, innovative and clever. But then, it's out there and it's famous, so people know how it works and how it's written. So they, do similar things and they play on it, and with time it changes and evolves. And once you've seen the version of it done, with time and development, 100 different people who have had chances to practice it and refine it, and going back to the original sort of doesn't hold up as well. Still, it didn't take us as long as I thought it would. And I'm still feeling fresh enough, so I think I will get through to Eve's diary and see her perspective. I do think it's interesting, some of the characterisation stuff, though. The fact that Eve is naming everything, that Adam only ever comes up with a few words, all of which are very, very good words, by the judgment of both of them. I don't know if that's meant to be like a commentary on men versus women, or if it's just meant to be a character thing, but it's amusing little detail. It's odd that you never compared people with the Cain to a monkey now, I think, on it. I wonder why that is. I know that there have been at times sort of controversy about the idea of humans being descended from a shared ancestor with apes. I don't know when Darwin was writing, so I don't know if the idea had even come up now, or come up at that point in time and was being deliberately avoided so as not to spark controversy, or if it just didn't occur to Twain. I mean, Twain being, I believe, an American writer, I don't know if he'd ever had the chance or the occasion to see a monkey. I mean, I don't suppose he'd have the occasion to see a dolphin in general life either, but he still knows of them. I don't know. A great mystery. Something would be worth asking if he were still alive, I'm sure, but... yeah, well. I mean, God knows, knowing Mark Twain, it might literally just have been for the perverse joy you get from tweaking the nose of every reader who'd asked the question. Anyhow, no more sense beating around the bush. Let's get on with EU's diary, shall we? It occurs to me this one called itself extracts from and mentioned that there was an entire Adam's diary. So I suspect that there were parts of the text omitted. I suppose this being the case, that the EU's diary will be the complete version. I wonder what the difference is, right? EU's diary translated from the original. Obliged to meet a request for a submission to Harper's Magazine in July 1905, Twain turned to EU's diary. His intent, as he explained it, was to refer to extracts from Adam's diary, published in 1893, as her unwritten and unconscious text, since to use any other text would have been an imbecility. The diary was made into a book in 1906 and later collected along with extracts from Adam's diary in The Private Lives of Adam and Eve in 1931. Saturday. I am almost an old day old now. I arrived yesterday. That is, as it seems to me. It must be so, for if there were a day before yesterday, I were not there when it happened. I should remember it. It could be, of course, that it did happen, and I was not noticing. Very well, I'll be very watchful now, and if any day before yesterday happens, or if any days before yesterday happen, I will make note of it. It would be best to start right now and not let the rest all get confused, for some instinct tells me that these details are going to be important to the historian someday. But I feel like an experiment. I feel exactly like an experiment. It would be impossible for a person to feel more like an experiment than I do, and so I'm coming to feel convinced that that is what I am, an experiment. Just an experiment and nothing more. Then if I am an experiment, am I the whole of it? No, I think not. I think the rest of it is part of it too. I think the rest of it is part of it. I am the main part of it, but I think the rest of it has to share in the matter. Is my position assured, or do I have to watch it and take care of it? The latter, perhaps. Some instinct tells me that eternal vigilance is the price of supremacy. That's a good phrase, I think, for one so young. Everything looks better today than it did yesterday. In the rush of finishing up yesterday, the mountains were left in a ragged condition, and some of the plains were so clustered with rubbish and remnants that the aspect was quite distressing. Noble and beautiful works of art should not be subjected to waste, and this majestic new world is indeed a most noble and beautiful work. And certainly marvellous, near to being perfect, notwithstanding the shortness of the time. There are too many stars in some places, and not enough in others, but that can be remedied presently, no doubt. The moon got loose last night and slid down and fell out of the scheme, a very great loss. It breaks my heart to think of it. There isn't another thing among the ornaments and decorations that is comparable to it for beauty and finish. And I should have been fastened better, if we can only get it back again. But of course there is no telling where it went to, and besides, whoever gets it will hide it. I know it because I would do it myself. I believe I can be honest in all other matters. I already begin to realise that the core of and centre of my nature is the love of the beautiful, a passion for the beautiful, and that it would not be safe to trust me with a moon that belonged to another person, and that person didn't know I had it. I could give up a moon that I found in the daytime, because I should be afraid someone will look in, but if I found it in the dark, I'm sure I should find some kind of an excuse for not saying anything about it. For I do love moons, they are so pretty and so romantic. I wish we had 5 or 6. I would never go to bed. I should never get tired of laying on the moss bank and looking up at them. Stars are good too. I wish I could get some to put in my hair. I suppose I never can. You'd be surprised to find how far off they are, for they do not look it. When they first showed up last night, I tried to knock some down with a pole, but it didn't reach, which astonished me. Then I tried clods till I was all tired out, but I never got one. It was because I am left-handed and cannot throw good. Even when I aimed at the one I wasn't after, I couldn't hit the other one. I did make some close shots, for I saw the black blot of the clods, which they were right in the midst of the golden cluster 40 or 50 times, just barely missing them. I could have held a little longer, maybe I could have got one. So I cried a little, which were natural, I suppose, for one of my age, and after I rested I got a basket and started for a place on the extreme rim of the circle, where the stars were close to the ground, and I could get them with my hands, which would not break them up. A bit further than I thought, and at last I had to give it up. I was so tired I couldn't drag my feet another step, and besides they were soaring at me very much. I couldn't get back home, it was too far and turning cold, but I found some tigers nestled among them, and most adorably comfortable, and their breath was sweet and pleasant because they live on strawberries. I'd never seen a tiger before, but I knew them in a minute by the stripes. If I could have one of their skins, it would make a lovely gown. Now I'm getting better ideas about distances. I was so eager to get hold of every pretty thing that I giddy grabbed for it. But sometimes when it were too far off, sometimes when it was 6 inches away, it seemed a foot. Alas, with thorns between. I learned a lesson. Also I made an axiom all out of my own head, my very first one. The scratched experiment that turns the thorn. I think it is a very good one for one so young. I followed the other experiment around yesterday afternoon at a distance to see what it might be for, if I could, but we're not able to make it out. I think it is a man, I'd never seen a man, but he looked like one, and I felt sure that that's what it was. I realised that I felt more curiosity about it than any other reptiles, if it is a reptile, and I suppose it is, because it has frowsy hair and blue eyes and looks like a reptile. It has no hips, it tapers like a carrot when it stands, it spreads itself apart like a derrick, so I think it is a reptile, but maybe architecture. I was afraid of it at first, and started to run every time it turned around, for I thought it were going to chase me. But by and by I found that we were only trying to get away, so after that I was not timid anymore, but tracked it along several hours, about 20 yards beyond, which made it nervous and unhappy. At last it were a good deal worried and climbed a tree. I waited a good while, then gave it up and went home. The day the same thing over. I got it up the tree again. Poor Adam. Sunday. It is up there yet, resting apparently, but that is a subterfuge. Sunday isn't the day of rest, Saturday is appointed for that. It looks to me like a creature that is more interested in resting than in anything else, and it would tire me it would tire me much to rest so much. It tires me just to sit around and watch the tree. I do wonder what it is for. I never see it do anything. They returned the moon last night, and I were happy. I think it is very honest of them. It slipped down again and fell off, but I was not distressed. There's no need to worry when one has that kind of neighbours. They will fetch it back. I wish I could do something to show my appreciation. I'd like to send them some stars. We have more than we can use. I mean, I, not we, for I can see that the reptile cares nothing for such things. It has low tastes, and is not kind. When I went there yesterday evening in the gloaming, it had crept down and were trying to catch the little speckled fishes that play in the pool. I had to clod it and make it go up the tree again and let them alone. I wonder if that is what it is for. Hasn't it any heart? Hasn't it any compassion for those little creatures? Can it be that it was designed and manufactured for such ungentle one? That's the look of it. One of the clods took it back of the ear, and it used language. It gave me a thrill, for it was the first time I had ever heard speech except my own. I did not understand the word, but they seemed expressive. When I found it could talk, I felt new interest in it, for I love to talk. I talk all day and in my sleep too, and I am very interested. But if I had another to talk to, I could be twice as interested. I would never stop if desired. If this reptile is a man, it isn't an it then, is it? That wouldn't be grammatical, would it? I think it would be he. I think so. In that case, one will pass in this nominative, he, dative, him, possessive hism. Well, I will consider a man and call it he until it turns out to be something else. This will be handier than having so many uncertainties. Next week, Sunday. All the week I tagged around after him and tried to get acquainted. I had to do the talking because he was shy, but I don't mind it. He seemed pleased to have me around, and I used the sociable we a good deal, because it seemed to flatter him to be included. Wednesday. We are getting along quite well. We are getting along very well indeed now, and getting better and better acquainted. He does not try to avoid me anymore, which is a good sign, and shows that he likes to have me with him. This pleases me, and I study to be useful to him in every way I can, so as to increase his regard. During the last day or two, I have taken all the work of naming things off his hands, and he has been a great relief to him, for he has no gift in that line, and is evidently very grateful. He can't think of a rational name to save him, but I do not let him see that I am aware of his defect. Whenever a new creature comes along, I name it before he has time to expose himself by an awkward silence. In this way I have saved him many embarrassments. I have no defect like his. The minute I set eye on an animal, I know what it is. I don't have to reflect a moment. The right name comes out instantly, just as if it were an inspiration. That's no doubt it is, but I'm sure it wasn't in me half a minute before. I seem to know just by the shape of the creature and the way it acts what animal it is. When the dodo came along, he thought it were a wildcat. I saw it in his eye, but I saved him. I was careful not to do it in a way that could hurt his pride. I just spoke up in quite a natural way, with pleasant surprise, and not as if I were dreaming of conveying information. I said, "Well, I do declare, if there isn't a dodo," I explained, without seeming to be explaining. I knew it for a dodo, and although I thought maybe you were a little piqued that I knew the creature when he didn't, it was quite evident that he admired me. This was very agreeable, and I thought of it more than once with gratification before I slept. How little things can make us happy when we feel that we have earned it. I'm glad that I decided to read these together, because they do work well together. They complement each other pretty well. Right. Thursday. My first Euthyra. Yesterday he avoided me and seemed to wish I would not talk to him. I could not believe it, and thought there was some mistake, for I loved to be with him, and loved to hear him talk, and so how could it be that he could feel unkind towards me when I had not done anything? But at last it seemed true. So I went away and sat lonely in the place where I first saw him, the morning that we were made, and I did not know what he was, and was indifferent about him. But now it were a mournful place, and every little thing spoke of it, and my heart was very sore. I did not know why very clearly, for it was a new feeling. I had not experienced it before, and it were all mystery, and I could not make it out. When night come, I could not bear the loneliness, and went to the new shelter which he had built, to ask him what I had done that were wrong, and how I could mend it and get back in his kindness again. But he put me out in the rain, and it was my first sorrow. Sunday. It is pleasant again now, and I am happy. Those were every days. I do not think of them when I can help it. I tried to get some of those apples, but I cannot learn to throw straight. I failed, but I think the good intention pleased him. They are forbidden, and he says I shall come with to arm, but so I come to arm through pleasing him. Why shall I care for that art? These people cannot communicate for the life of them. Monday. This morning I told him my name, hoping he would interest him. He did not care for it. It is strange. If he should tell me his name, I would care. I think it would be pleasanter in my ears than any other sound. He talks very little. Perhaps it is because he is not bright and is sensitive about it and wishes to conceal it. It is such a pity that he should feel so, for brightness is nothing. It is nothing. It is in the art that the values lie. I wish I could make him understand that a love and good art is richness, is riches, and riches enough, and that without it, intellect is poverty. Although he talks so little, he has quite a considerable vocabulary. This morning he used a surprisingly good word. He recognised it himself that it were a good one, for he worked it in twice afterward, casually. It was not a good casual art, still it showed that he possessed a certain quality of perception. Without a doubt, that seed can be made to grow if cultivated. How did he get that word? I do not think I had ever used it. No, he took no interest in mine then. I tried to hide my disappointment, but I suppose I did not succeed. I went away and sat on the moss bank with my feet in the water. It is where I go when I hunger for companionship. Someone to look at, someone to talk to. It is not enough, that lovely one body painted there in the pool. It is something, and something is better than utter loneliness. It talks when I talk. It is sad when I am sad. It comforts me with its sympathy. It says, "Do not be downhearted, you poor friendless girl. I will be your friend." It is a good friend to me, and my only one. It is my sister. That first time that she forsook me, I shall never forget that, never, never. My heart were lead in my body. I said she were all I had, and now she is gone, in my despair. I said, break my heart, and I cannot bear the life any more. I hid my face in my hands, and there were no solace for me. When I took them away, after a little, there she were again, white and shining and beautiful, and I sprung into her arms. It was perfect happiness. I had known happiness before, but it was not like this, which was ecstasy. I never doubted her afterward. Sometimes she stayed away, maybe an hour, and maybe almost the whole day, but I waited and did not doubt. I said she is busy, as she has gone on a journey, but she will come. That was so, she always did. At night she would not come. It was dark. She were a timid little thing. But if there were a moon, she would come. I am not afraid of the dark, but she is younger than I am. She was born after I was. Many and many are the visits I have paid her. She is my comfort and my refuge when my life is hard. And it is mainly that. Tuesday. All the morning I were at work improving the estate. I purposely kept away from him in the hope that he would get lonely and come, but he did not. At noon I stopped for the day and took my recreation by flitting all about with the bees and butterflies and revelling in the flowers, those beautiful creatures that catch the smile of God out of the sky and preserve it. I gathered them and made them into wreaths and garlands, and clothed myself and ate my luncheon, apples of course. And I sat down in the shade and wished and waited, but he did not come. But no matter, nothing would have come of it, for he does not care for flowers. He calls them rubbish and cannot tell one from another, and thinks that it is superior to feel like that. He does not care for me, he does not care for flowers, he does not care for the painted sky at eventide. Is there even anything he does care for, except building shacks to coop himself up in the good clean rain, thumping the melons and sampling the grapes and fingering the fruit in the trees to see how those properties are coming along? I laid a dry stick on the ground and tried to bore an hole in it with another one in order to carry out the scheme that I had, and soon I got an awful fright. A thin, transparent, bluish film rose out of the hole, and I dropped everything and ran. I thought it was a spirit, and I was so frightened. I looked back and it were not coming, so I leaned against the rock and rested and panted, and let my limbs go on trembling until they got steady again. Then I crept warily back, alert, watching them ready to fly if there were occasion. And when I would come near, I pecked at the branch of the rose bush and peeped through, wishing the man was about. I was looking so cunning and pretty, but the sprite were gone. I went there, and there were a pinch of delicate pink dust in the old. I put my finger in the feel, and said ouch, and took it out again. It was a cruel pain. I put my finger in my mouth, and standing first on one foot and then the other and grunting, I presently eased my misery, then all full of interest and began to examine. I was curious to know what the pink dust was. Suddenly the name of it occurred to me, though I had never heard it before. It was fire. I was certain of it as a person could be of anything in the world, so without hesitation I named it that, fire. And I created something that didn't exist before. I added a new thing to the world's uncountable properties. I realised this and was proud of my achievement, and were going to run to find him and tell him about it, thinking of raising myself in his esteem. But I reflected and did not do it. No, he would not care for it. He would ask what it would good for, and what could I answer? But it was not good for something, but only beautiful. Merely beautiful. So I sighed and did not go, for it wasn't good for anything. It could not build his shacks, it could not improve melons, it could not hurry a fruit crop. It was useless, it was foolish and vanity. He would despise it and say cutting words to me. It was not despicable, I said. But to me it was not despicable. I said, "Oh, you fire, I love you, you dainty pink creature, for you are beautiful, and that is enough." I was going to gather it at my breast, but refrained. And I made another maxim out of my head, though it was so nearly like the first one that I was afraid it were only plagiarism. A burnt experiment shuns the fire. I wrought again, and when I had made a good deal of fire dust, I emptied it into an handful of dry brown grass, intending to carry it home and keep it always, and play with it. But the wind struck it and sprayed it up and spat out at me fiercely, and I dropped it and ran. When I looked back, the blue spirit was towering up and stretching and rolling away like a cloud, and instantly I thought of the name of it, smoke. Upon my word, I had never heard of smoke before. Soon, brilliant yellow and red flares shot up through the smoke, and I named them in an instant. Flames! And I were right to, though, for these were the very first flames that had ever been in the world. They climbed the trees, they flashed splendidly in and out of vast and increasing volume and tumbling smoke, and I had to clasp my hand and laugh and dance in my rapture. It was so new and strange, so wonderful and so beautiful. He come round and stopped and gazed, and said not a word for many a minute. Then he asked what it was. It was too bad that he should ask such a direct question. I had to answer it, of course, and I did. I said it was fire. It annoyed him that I should know and must ask, and that he must ask, but that was not my fault. I had no desire to annoy him. After a pause he asked, how did it come? Another direct question, and also had to have a direct answer. I made them. The fire was travelling farther and farther off. He went to the edge of the burned place and stood looking down and said, "What are these?" "Fire coals." He picked one up to examine, but changed his mind and put it down again, and he went away. Nothing interested him. I were interested. They were ashes, grey and soft and delicate and pretty. I knew what they were at once, and the embers, I knew the embers too. I found my apples and raked them out and was glad, for I'm very young and my appetite is active. I was disappointed. They were all burst open and spoiled. Spoiled apparently, but it was not so. They were better than the raw ones. Fire is beautiful. Some day it will be useful, I think. I'm going to pause now for a moment, just have a quick drink. Friday. I saw him again for a moment last Monday at nightfall, but only for a moment. I reckon he would praise me for trying to improve the estate, for I had meant well and had worked hard, but he was not pleased and turned away and left me. He was also displeased on another account. I tried once more to persuade him to stop going over the falls. That was because the fire had revealed to me a new passion, quite new and distinctly different from love, grief, and those others which I had already discovered. Fear, and it's horrible. I wish I had never discovered it. It gives me dark moments, it spoils my happiness, it makes me shiver and tremble and shudder. I could not persuade him, for he has not discovered fear yet, and so could not understand me. Extract from Adam's diary. Perhaps I ought to remember that she is a very young, a mere girl, and make allowances. She is all interest, eagerness, vivacity for the world to her is a charm, a wonder, a mystery, a joy. She can't speak for delight when she finds a new flower. She must pet it and caress it, and smell it and talk to it, and pour out endearing names upon it. And she is colour mad. Brown rocks, yellow sand, grey moss, green foliage, blue sky, the pearl of the dawn, the purple shadows on the mountain, the golden islands floating in crimson seas at sunset, the pallid moon sailing through the shredded cloud rack, the star jewels glittering in the waste of space. None of them is of any practical value so far as I can see. Because they have colour and majesty, that is enough for her, and she loses her mind over them. If she could just quiet down and keep still a couple of minutes at a time, it would be a reposeful spectacle. In that case, I think I could enjoy looking at her. Indeed, I'm quite sure I could, for I'm coming to realise that she is quite a remarkably comely creature, large, slender, trim, rounded, shapely, nimble, graceful. Like once when she was standing, marble white and sun-drenched on a boulder, with her young head tilted back and her hand set in her eye, watching the flight of a bird in the sky, I recognised that she was beautiful. Monday noon. If there is anything on the planet she is not interested in, it is not in my list. There are animals that I am indifferent to, but it is not so with her. She has no discrimination. She takes to all of them. She thinks they are all treasures. Every new one is welcome. When the mighty Brontosaurus comes striding in the camp, she regarded it as an acquisition. I considered it a calamity. It is a good sample of the lack of harmony that prevails in our views of things. She wanted to domesticate it. I wanted to make it a present to the homestead and move out. She believed it could be tamed by kind treatment and would be a good pet. I said a pet 21 feet high and 84 feet long would know no proper thing about the place, Because even with the best intentions and without meaning any harm, it could sit down in the house and mash it, for anyone could see by the look of its eye that we're absent-minded. Still, her heart was set upon having that monster, and she couldn't give up. She thought we could start a dairy with it and wanted me to help her milk it. I wouldn't, it was too risky. The sex wasn't right and we haven't any ladder anyway. Then she wanted to ride it and look out at the scenery. 30 or 40 feet of its tail were lying on the ground like a fallen tree. She thought she could climb it, but she was mistaken. When she got to the steep place, it was too slick and down she came and would have hurt herself but for me. Was she satisfied now? No, nothing ever satisfies her but demonstration. Untested theories are not in her line, and she won't have them. It is the right spirit, I concede. It attracts me. I feel the influence of it. If I were with her more, I think I should take it up myself. Well, she had one theory remaining about this colossus. She thought if we could tame him and make him friendly, we could stand him on the river and use him for a bridge. It turned out they were already plenty tame enough, at least as far as she was concerned. So she tried her theory, but failed her. Every time she got him properly placed in the river and went ashore to cross over him, he came out and followed her around like a pet mountain. Like the other animal, they all do that. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and today, all without seeing him. It is a long time to be alone. Still, it is better to be alone than unwelcome. I had to have company. I was made for it, I think, so I made friends with the animals. They're just charming and they have the kindest disposition and the politest ways. They never look sour and they never let you feel that you're intruding. They smile at you and wag their tail if they've got one, and they are always ready for a romp or an excursion or anything you want to propose. I think they are perfect gentlemen. All these days we have had such good times and it hasn't been lonesome for me, ever. Lonesome? No, I should say not. There's always a swarm of them around, sometimes as much as 4 or 5 acres. You couldn't count them. And when you stand on a rock in the midst and look out over the furry expanse, it's so mottled, splashed with gay colour and frisking sheen and sun flash, and so rippled with stripes that you might think it were a lake, only you knew it isn't. And there's storms of sociable birds and hurricanes of whirring wings, and when the sun strikes all that feathery commotion, you have a blazing up of the colours you can think of enough to put your eyes out. We've made long excursions and I've seen a great deal of the world, almost all of it I think, and so I'm the first traveller and the only one. When we're on the march it is an imposing sight. There's nothing like it anywhere. For comfort I rode a tiger or a leopard because it is soft and has a round back that fits me, and because they are such pretty animals, but for long distance or for scenery I rode the elephant. He hoists me up with his trunk, but I can get off myself. When we are ready the campy sits and I slide down the back way. The birds and animals are all friendly to each other and there are no disputes about anything. They all talk and they all talk to me, but it must be a foreign language for I can't make out a word they say. They often understand me when I talk back, particularly the dog and the elephant. It makes me ashamed. It shows that they are brighter than I am, and therefore my superiors. It annoys me for I want to be the principal experiment myself, and I intend to be too. I've learned a number of things, and I'm educated now, but I wasn't at first. I was ignorant at first. At first it used to vex me, because with all my watching I was never smart enough to be around when the water will run uphill. But now I do not mind it. I've experimented and experimented until I now know it never does run uphill, except in the dark. I know it does in the dark because the pool never goes dry, which it would, of course, if the water didn't come back in the night. It's best to prove things by actual experiment, then you know, whereas if you depend on guessing and supposing and conjecture, you will never get educated. Friday. Some things you can't find out, but you will never know you can't by guessing and supposing. No, you have to be patient and go on experimenting until you find out that you can't find out. And it's delightful to have it that way. It makes the world so interesting. If there wasn't anything to find out, it would be dull. Even trying to find out and not finding out is just as interesting as trying to find out and finding out. And I don't know, but more so. The secret of the water were a treasure until I got it. Then the excitement all went away and I recognised a sense of loss. By experiment, I know the wood swims and dry leaves and feathers and plenty of other things. Therefore, by all that cumulative evidence, you know that a rock will swim. They have to put up with simply knowing it, for there isn't any way to prove it up until now. I shall find a way, then by that extent I will go. Such things make me sad, because by and by I found out everything that there won't be any more excitements, and I do love excitement so. The other night I couldn't sleep thinking about it. At first I couldn't make out what I was made for, but now I think it would to search out the secrets of the wonderful world and be happy and thank the giver for all for devising it. I think there are many things to learn yet. I hope so. And by economising and not hurrying too fast, I think they will last weeks and weeks. I hope so. When you cast up a feather, it sails away on the air and goes out of sight. Then you throw up a clod and it doesn't. It comes down every time. I've tried it, and it was always so. I wonder why it is. Of course it doesn't come down, but why should it seem to? I suppose it's an optical illusion. I mean, one of them is. I don't know which one. It may be the feather, it may be the clod. I can't prove which it is. I can only demonstrate that one or the other is a fake and let a person take his choice. By watching, I know the stars are not going to last. I've seen some of the best ones melt and run down the sky. Since one can melt, they all can melt. Since they all can melt, they can all melt the same night. The sorrow will come, I know it. I mean, I sit up every night and look at them as long as I can keep awake, and I will impress the sparkling fields into my memory so that by and by, when they are taken away, I can by my fancy restore these lovely night myriads to the black sky and make them sparkle again, and double them by the blur of my tears. After the fall. When I look back, the garden is a dream to me. It was beautiful, surprisingly beautiful, enchantingly beautiful, and now it is lost, and I shall not see it any more. The garden is lost, but I have found him, and I am content. He loves me as well as he can. I love him with all the strength of my passionate nature, and this, I think, is proper to my youth and sex. If I ask myself why I love him, I find I do not answer. I do not really much care to know, so I suppose that is the kind of this kind of love is not a product of reasoning and statistics, like one's love for other reptiles and animals. I think that this must be so. I love certain birds because of their song, but I do not love Adam on account of his singing. No, it is not that. The more he sings, the more I do not get reconciled to it. Yet I ask him to sing, because I wish to learn and like everything he is interested in. I am sure I can learn, because at first I could not stand it, but now I can. It sours the milk, but it doesn't matter. I can get used to that kind of milk. It is not on account of his brightness that I love him. No, it is not that. He is not to blame for his brightness, such as it is, for he did not make it himself. He is as God made him, and that is sufficient. There will arise purpose in it, that I know, and time it will develop, though I think it will not be sudden. And besides, there is no hurry. He is well enough just as he is. It is not on account of his gracious and considering ways and his delicacy that I love him. No, he lacks in these regards, but he is well enough just so, and is improving. It is not on account of his industry that I love him. No, it is not that. I think he has it in him, and I do not know why he conceals it from me. It is my only pain. Otherwise, he is frank and open with me. Now, I am sure he keeps nothing from me, but it grieves me that he should have some secret from me. And sometimes it spoils my sleep thinking of it. I will put it out of my mind. It shall not trouble my happiness, which is otherwise full of overflowing. It is not on account of his education that I love him. No, it is not that. He is self-educated and does not really know a multitude of things, but they are not so. It is not on account of his chivalry that I love him. No, it is not that. He told on me, but I do not blame him. It is a peculiarity of sex, I think, and he did not make his sex. Of course, I would not have told on him. I would have perished first, but that is a peculiarity of sex too, and I do not take credit for it, for I did not make my sex. Then why is it that I love him? Merely because he is masculine, I think. That bottom me is good, and I love him for that. I could love him without it. If he beat me and abused me, I should go on loving him. I know it. It is a matter of sex, I think. He is strong and handsome, and I love him for that, and I admire him and am proud of him. But I could love him without those qualities if he were plain. I should love him. If he were a wreck, I should love him. And I would work for him, and slave over him, and pray for him, and watch his bedside until I die. Yeah, I think I really love him because he is mine, and is masculine. There is no other reason, I suppose. And so I think as I first said, this kind of love comes not as a product of reason and statistic, it just comes. None knows whence, and cannot explain itself, and doesn't need to. Here's what I think. I'm only a girl, and the first that he has examined this matter, and it may turn out that in my ignorance and inexperience I have not got it right. 40 years later, it is my prayer, it is my longing that we may pass from this life together, a longing which will never perish from the earth, but shall have place in the heart of every wife that loves until the end of time, and shall be called by my name. If one of us must go first, it is my prayer that it shall be I, for he is strong and I am weak. I am not so necessary to him as he is for me. Life without him would not be life. How could I endure it? This prayer is also immortal and will not cease from being offered up while my race continues. I am the first wife, and in the last wife I shall be repeated. At Eve's grave, Adam. Wheresoever she was, there was Eden. That's a slightly old-fashioned sentiment, and I don't agree with all of it. I think there is more to love than just a longing and a need. I think there can be intellect in love, understanding and love, companionship. I do not think love should persist whether it is evil or cruelty. I do not think it needs to be given unconditionally. And I certainly do not think it is inherent from the feminine to the masculine, no matter what. But there's some beauty there too. A genuineness in the love, a fear. A love that is the fear of things being lost, the possession of beautiful things, and a terrible coldness of that loss. Wherever she was, there was Eden. That's a line enough. I also think of Twain as a humorist. I find his essays comic and very solid in most regards, although somewhat lacking sometimes. But he's a remarkable author in many accounts. Well, I suppose this collection is much got amassed by whoever collected them. They just preferred the humorous stuff, because there's definitely something to him. I don't think there's too much to say about this that isn't the same as you'd say about the one about Adam. It's later and there's some more maturity to it, and of course Eve's perspective is different than his, but the story is the same, even if you see a different perspective. Wherever she went, there was Eden. Oh Lord, that'll stick with me. I don't think I've got a lot more to say about these. I mean, it was just a collection of short stories today, not one big overarching narrative. Each little thing I've said has been true for the thing it was said about, not much more, still. But still. It's nice sometimes when you read something in an order and the order sort of, how'd you put it, is like a curve upwards, you know what I mean? The second one's better than the first, and then the third's better than the second. Or maybe that's unfair. Is it? No, I think I stand by it, although I didn't dislike the second, there just wasn't a lot of substance to it, really. It's good to end on a strong note. When the last one's the best, that's a good thing. And especially when the last line is so strong. Wherever she was, there was Eden, Lord. That is a good line. I don't think I got much more to add than that, but yeah, thank you anyone who's stood by and watched this. T-minus 2 days until I'm doing my Londonathon, so I do hope you'll join me for that. I've got some things in the works, got all sorts of ideas going on, but yeah. But I think that's about it really, so until next time, I will once again bid you a ta-ra.